Now, back when I was in the mortgage business, they started what was called no verifying mortgages, which perverted itself into what has become the no qualifying or liar mortgages. When these loans first came out, they were loans designed for loans that were designed for very large earners, people that had 3-4 inch thick tax returns, that had huge cash flow going through their accounts, where though it was difficult to verify what the actual income was, but you knew that they had the income. They were also putting 25-30% down payments on what they were buying, and they had impeccable credit. These were not bad loans. That perverted into something where I actually had a man come to me in my company now. Now we're helping people get out of these bad properties. Where a man came to me, he was in California. He drove a truck, he pulled a lawnmower behind his truck, and he didn't speak English. I have to assume that must be a slight earning disability. Yet he owned 5 homes with mortgages of over $3 million on these loans, on these properties. How did that happen? Greed, fraud, and government intervention and government submission. What you've done is we've had the mentality in this country that everyone has the entitlement to own a home. All of you people are entitled to own a home. When I was young, when I was first married, we would rent an apartment, and then we would save money for a down payment so that we could afford our first home. And if we couldn't have money for the apartment, I guess you'd sleep in the car. But the last 10 years, if you didn't have money for the apartment, why sleep in the car? You can get a home to own and get cash back at closing. That's how ridiculous this has been. The government back in the 1800s, 1890s, there was something called bucket shops. Are any of you aware of what bucket shops are? Raise your hands. I don't see too many. 61. Bucket shops were gambling dens. Bucket shops were promoted by the information highway, the information superhighway at the time, which was Western Union. They were selling ticker tape service. And they were opening up these shops where people were going in. They were bookie joints. They were gambling on whether a security would rise, whether a security or a commodity would rise or fall. And they were making money. Didn't matter if it went up or down. They were making money. They were bookie joints. They knew how to gamble. And these were outlawed in, I believe, 1905 or 1910. They were brought back under the Clinton administration. Financial derivatives. You have AIG, you had Goldman Sachs, you had these companies on Wall Street that were buying mortgages, mortgage-backed securities, and selling them as quality A-paper mortgages when they were nothing but junk, similar to the example I just cited. Every time the government involves itself in free market and free enterprise, everything goes bad. I don't know of any case where it has worked. Now I hear that the government is starting a new job bank. They're creating an actual financial bank to finance their so-called job business. I believe that this is probably the first step towards Obama's plan to nationalize our banking industry. Right now, the too big to fail banks have all been rescued by the government. The small banks who aren't getting these services are falling. They're being acquired by the large banks. And I believe that if we don't do something to stop this, we're going to end up with a national bank. And I don't think that's good, and I don't think that's anything that any of us want to see. Europe is trying to copy the way we used to be, and we're trying to become the way Europe failed. This is not good for this country, and this is not good for America. And it's not good for you folks and for anyone. Getting a mortgage today, there are properties, there are prices that are better than they've ever been. But the unfortunate problem is there are so many good people that were victims of this complete fraud that they're sitting there owing twice what their homes are worth. And until this corrects itself, nothing is going to really completely recover. And we're never going to see this, I don't believe, this huge double, triple digit inflation on homes. Homes are what you live in. They're not your cash bank. They're not a piggy bank for you. Homes will rise with inflation the same as the loaf of bread will rise, gradually and properly. But today, once this glut of mortgaged properties gets disposed of, whether it's foreclosed or whether people walk away from it or whether they do whatever in their power to help get out of the property or bite the bullet and pay twice what it's worth, things will not fully recover. There's too much inventory out there, and it can never recover until there are true jobs, not government-created jobs. We don't need more census takers. We don't need more IRS agents. We need people that can go out and really do work. And thank you. And the only way that that will really happen is if the government stays out of free enterprise. Taxing business is not the answer. And you can go back. You know, I'm not saying this is a Republican, which I am, but John Kennedy was a tax cutter. He was. John Kennedy was probably the Republican that we see today. It doesn't make sense to tax business. Business creates jobs, and if you stifle this business, there's no jobs for any of us. There's no housing recovery. Everything fails. It's not the way to run a country, it's not a way to run a business, and it's not a way to run your life. Also, I think it's time for all of us to realize that personal responsibility has to take a place, whether it's in housing, whether it's in your business, whether it's in everything that you do. You have to go back to the principles of your parents or maybe even your grandparents. Buy what you can afford to buy. Everybody wants to have the big mansion, but maybe you can't afford the big mansion. It's something you have to work for. You can't do everything on credit. And unfortunately, what I think is happening, and it scares me to death, is that the country is going the same direction that the mortgage market went, and we're going to be bankrupt if we don't stop spending what we don't have. We don't need... I do, though, believe that Americans are very resilient people. Though we do survive, but and Americans are very charitable people. Americans are the best people in the world. When there's a natural disaster anywhere in the world, we're the first ones to show up. We're there to help, we're there to give, we're there to do. But we're not there to help the government, and that's wrong. The government is not a business. The government is us. We are the government, and the government is not supposed to make a profit. It's not supposed to tell us how to spend our money. The government is there to provide, basically, as far as I feel, one service, to provide a military, to protect us, and not to run our banks, not to run our mortgages, not to run our lives, and not to tax us to death. Amen. Thank you very much. If you're interested, you can find out a little more about what I'm doing by looking at my website. It's realtycrisis.com.